It's 4 o'clock on a Monday, and you know what that means, don't you? It's time for another exciting episode of TAXITV Live. Woohoo! Oh, my level's a little bit hot. Gonna have to take care of that. And there's everybody in the chat room. Hello, everybody. How are you guys? Wow, from Costa Rica. I've been there. I went to Laskow Beach. Loved it. And somewhere else, I can't remember the name of, but beautiful, beautiful country. Really, really nice people. So welcome to the big show. Okay, today we are going to do Ask Taxi's CEO, that would be me, anything. We got in some questions, not a lot submitted online, so I hope you guys have some. But first thing I'm going to do is answer the stuff that came in. Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is turn my microphone down a little bit, is answer the stuff that came in before the show, because those people took the time and the trouble to do that. And then after that, we will start taking stuff from my loyal viewers in the chat room who I love dearly. Chicago. I grew up in beautiful downtown Ottawa, Illinois, a mere 90 miles from you. Yep, the scary monitors, they do look like SpongeBob. Anyway, okay, so a couple things I want to talk about. I want to remind you first, before we get started, that the Taxi Road Rally, it's our free conference, free for every member and a guest of every member. And it's coming up November 7th through the 10th. Here in Los Angeles, and you're probably thinking, oh, I don't want to get on a plane. It's a lot of hassle to go. Just go to, I'm going to actually give you a URL, see if I can find that. Okay. Taxi got Liz, if you could type this one out, taxi.com/transmitter/2048/the-fastest-way-for-, as in FOR, sync //. Taxi.com transmitter 2408, or you could just go to the August 24 Taxi Transmitter newsletter, and you're going to see a thing called the fastest way to get signed for sync, and just story after story. I work on the member deals or success stories every month, and I'm just amazed by how many people have met people at the Road Rally that become their writing partners, their collaborators, how many people have met a music supervisor or library owner in an elevator, hallway, restroom, you name it, or the bar. Pretty popular one, the bar. Anyway, so check that out. It's going to be great. I worked on it a bunch this past weekend. We are going to do the keynote, as I mentioned. Will AI music steal your job? Really all-star panel on that. Very, very deep discussion for the opening thing. Then I'm going to do a panel called How Music Supervisors Pick Music for Advertising, with a well-known, very experienced music supervisor who does a lot of big TV commercials. I'm trying to get somebody to come in and do a little half-hour thing at the end of that one called How to Create Reimagined Covers for Ads and Trailers. An old friend of ours here at Taxi that has been a music supervisor, as well as working currently at a very high-end production music library, is their head of A&R, and she's just amazing on a panel, so I'm trying to get her to come back. Was on the phone just a couple hours ago with a well-known music supervisor who's been a very close friend of mine for roughly 8 or 9 years now. And we're going to do a thing that we've done kind of in the past, which is we're going to run a taxi listing or two that will actually be for what he needs for a couple of placements within a TV show or a film that he's currently working on, that they would be going into audio post and laying the music in after the rally. So the game plan, it could change a little bit, but this is probably what it's going to be, is the game plan is that we will run a listing or two. Members will submit their music. The music will get forwarded just as normal directly to the music supervisor. He then will go through the forwards. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we do it for one listing, one slot in a film. And let's say we forward him 17 things. Well, obviously, he may not have time to play all 17 against picture in the ballroom to show his thought process and why he picks one thing over another. So he might narrow that down, as he mentioned in the call earlier, whatever. I'm just going with the imaginary number of 17. So let's say he whittles that down to 7. And then he's going to play those 7 against the scene and get your feedback being in the audience. Would you pick this one or that one? And he's going to ultimately tell you which one he would pick. And whichever one gets picked, he is going to present that as his normal stuff to the film's director or executive producer, whoever he reports to on that project. So not only do you get exposure to a great music supervisor working on a real project and get heard in the ballroom at the road rally, you also have a very real shot of ending up in the film or TV show, whatever it is that he's going to run the listings for. So thought that was kind of a cool thing. We're going to do a film and TV song pitch and feedback panel. I'm not going to tell you. I've got the panelists' names scribbled in here, but I'm not going to say who they are until I've got them completely locked down. We are going to do the jam room and the open mic at night like we've done before. Love doing those. Saturday, November 9th, we're going to start the day out with instrumental pitch and feedback panel with another all-star panel of production music library owners listening to the music that you guys submit for that panel and letting you know if it works, if it doesn't work. Then we're going to do one of Robin Frederick's incredibly popular, she always packs the ballroom, incredibly popular presentations. I think this one is called Writing with Your Authentic Self, something like that. I know Authentic Self is in there. Robin and I haven't touched base to refine that yet. That's going to be from 10:45 to 11:45 on Saturday. I'm juggling a couple things for the afternoon session, and then going to do a thing, which this is just a working title, Everything You Need to Know About Sync, from 3:45 to 5:15. That's going to have a bunch of well-known members that have accomplished what virtually all other members would like to do. And basically, we're going to cover sync. The thing at the rally is some people show up and they're brand new. They don't know a lot because they just decided to start pursuing a career in sync. This is their first road rally. They haven't watched a lot of TAXITVs. Then we've got the intermediates who are somewhat experienced. They've come to the road rally. They watch TAXITV. They've gotten forwarded. Maybe they've got some stuff in libraries, but they would like to up their game. And then we've got the people who have figured it out and keep refining their skill set to work faster and better, and now they're starting to get crazy amounts of placements and have tons of stuff in libraries. So we're going to address all that stuff, kind of soup to nuts, A to Z, sync music licensing 101 up to 404, if you go by the college, whatever they call that. Anyway, and I've got names written in for that, but I'm not going to tell you. This is something that we did last year that was surprisingly wonderful. The ballroom wasn't that full because we did it at the end of the day from 5:30 to 6:30, and I think people were hungry and wanted to go grab a beer. But it's the time of day where we can turn down the lights in the ballroom and just be a little looser, have a little more fun, not so official, as it were. And last year, Steve Block and I did it. This year, we're being joined by Bobby Reimer, who even Steve Block says Bobby Reimer's so much better than I am. So I can't wait because I thought Block did a great job last year. And we're going to play demos from songs that went on to become hits. Just so it's just a cool thing. Maybe it'll help you write better songs. It kind of shows you where the demo bar is, mostly for country, although Reimer's going to bring some stuff outside of country. And I personally am bringing a special treat this year. something that I've never done on TAXITV. I've never done on a panel at the Road Rally. It's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime thing where if you're not in the ballroom that night for that hour, you're going to miss one of the coolest things I think that you'll ever see. A little piece of real live music history will take place in the ballroom on Saturday from 5:30 to 6:30. I'm very excited about that. Sunday morning, for all of you Taxi members who don't know yet, there's a very real market for music you recorded in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, even further back. And the guy, please don't mention his name if you know who I'm talking about, because many of you know him, but he is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for 20, 25 years. I love having him on panels at the Road Rally, and he and I and his head of A&R are going to talk about vintage music and play you some examples of vintage stuff. He may even bring some examples of, sounds like it's vintage, but it's not. But they've really cornered the market on getting vintage music placed. And, you know, for those of you who recorded demos on a TAC 4-track back in 1979, sometimes that stuff sounds good enough. It doesn't have to sound like a record, you know. They're looking for stuff that sounds authentic to the time period, and sometimes they're demos where the recording is like pretty darn good. Again, not record quality. They don't expect it to be. They would be thrilled if it is, but they know most of the time it's not going to be. But if it's a clean, well-balanced recording and the song is good and it sounds like it's good for sync, which is a whole different animal. So you don't want to miss that. If you are over like 40 years old and you've got a whole bunch of stuff that you've recorded over many, many years, and it's just going to, like, when you die, it's going to die. Hate to be so morose about it, but you get my vibe, right? So that's that. Let's see. I don't have anything nailed down for 11 to 12 on Sunday. We are doing the song listening and feedback session, which we did last year in the 200-seat theater. And that was for stuff that's not sync related. And that room was pretty darn full. We did rock and singer-songwriter, hip-hop, top 40 pop, and R&B, country, Christian. So panel of experts, and I'm trying to decide if I want to move that to the Grand Ballroom this year or leave it in the 200-seat theater. I'm not entirely sure. Then at 2:15, from 2:15 to 3:30, we are going to be joined by none other than Dean Crepane, who's one of our earliest and has always been one of our most successful members, getting songs and instrumentals placed in sync. I'm looking, I don't have a copy of his book nearby right now, but everybody loves Dino. His books are awesome. You have to have them. If you don't know who he is or have his books yet, Liz, if you'd be kind enough to put the links in the chat, that would be much appreciated. Anyway, he's going to build a track live on stage. So for those of you who are starting out, or maybe you've been doing it for a year or two and you just don't seem to get forwarded, it's like, what are you talking about? Developmental arc. What are you talking about? My sounds don't sound good enough. Dean is everyman. He's a very regular guy that doesn't have like a hoity-toity attitude, doesn't have fancy equipment at all. If anything, his equipment is kind of dated and laughable, but he has mastered using it so well that his stuff just, I mean, it gets picked up all the time. And he's quite successful. So we're going to have him walk you through that. I don't have anything completely nailed down. I've got 3 options for the 3:45 to 5 p.m. slot on Sunday. And then the happy ending pitch panel, which of course is when we really have fun and kind of bust loose at the end of the rally, with Michael Lloyd, Rob Shirelli, Ron Harris, Pedro Costa has been on that one several times. Stephanie Reed, I believe, was on it last year. She was great. So we always do that to close out the rally, and we have a lot of fun on that panel. And don't forget, while all these things are going on in the ballroom, we will also have classes, typically between like 4 or 5 classes, maybe as many as 7, 8, or 9 classes on the second floor above the ballroom. So you'll be able to choose, do I want to see what's in the ballroom? Do I want to go to this class or that class? We are paring down the number of classes a little bit this year. We did that a little bit last year. People just say there's just too much and I can't decide what to go to. So we're looking at the numbers of the classes that drew the biggest numbers last year, biggest attendance, and those will be happening again with some new ones thrown in there. So that's that. Okay, talked about the road rally. Talked about the music supervisor thing. Oh, this is really important, and I need some feedback from you guys. These booklets, the Road Rally, there we go, the Road Rally program book, which is 62, 63 pages if you count the back inside cover. And it's got the descriptions of the teachers teaching classes. It's got bios for all the panelists. It's got descriptions of the panels and the classes. It's got a schedule grid, all that kind of stuff. It's got a welcome letter, a venue map, a schedule overview, schedule of events, driver's ed class descriptions, one-to-one mentor specialties. That's really important because you want to know who you're getting for your mentor. The music industry eat and greet lunch, the career bars, song, career, and production bars. Basically, those are one-to-ones that take place on top of the actual one-to-one sessions. We do some informal one-to-ones. Anyway, every year, people come up to me and go, Michael, why are you guys still printing this on paper? You're killing trees. So many of these get left behind, and it's true. People take it out of their goodie bag. They use it, and I get people coming up to me during the weekend, not a lot, but, like 5 to 10 people saying, dude, this 60-some pages times the number of people that get this thing, it's a waste of paper. I personally am not a huge fan of digital versions that I've seen, but I'm old school. I'm an old guy, and I like the paper one, but I think this year I'm inclined, at least I'm leaning towards getting rid of the paper. Oh, God. People are saying, I love the Road Rally book. Wow. So we are going to look at a couple of options for doing a digital version. Everybody's got a phone now. I can't imagine anybody being at the Road Rally doesn't have a phone. And wow, people are big fans of the paper. Okay, well, all right, I'm putting it on your shoulders that we're killing trees. As a matter of fact, we're going to print out pictures of your faces, put them on the tree, and then strangle the trees right in front of you and say, yes, that person caused the death of that tree. Of course, I'm kidding. Phones are too small. Can't stand digital books. Wow. It's so funny. The guy who helps to sell our sponsorships for the Road Rally said to me, you guys are the only convention. He works with all of them, not just in our industry, but other industries as well. Although, the audio music industry is kind of his strongest, his forte, if you will. And he said, you guys are the laughing stock of the industry because you're the only ones that still use a paper booklet. Anyway, can always print them on recycled paper. Yeah, we try. And I'm waiting to get an official answer back from Angel without me having to look up last year's invoice. But I want to say that it costs us roughly $5,000 or $6,000 to print these up, and it's heartbreaking when I see how many get cast aside. So we've killed trees, we've wasted a ton of money, but we'll see. Yeah, ouch is right. The Road Rally is not a cheap endeavor. We are doing really well so far. We've got contracts getting signed for sponsors. And a really cool event that I'm not going to say anything until the money is deposited. Even having a signed contract is not enough for me to talk about it, but a big sponsor that wants to be like the lead sponsor for the Road Rally this year wants to do a cool little event, like a little after party at 10 o'clock one night. So hopefully all this will come to fruition. A special edition on rare tree bark. That's a great idea, Martin. And then afterwards we can recycle the bark by building Native American canoes out of it and paddle down the Potawatomi River in our tree bark canoes. I tried to do that when I was a kid. I heard that the indigenous people used to make canoes out of, I think, birch tree bark or something when I was a kid. So, of course, I went home and stripped a bunch of bark off of our next-door neighbor's birch tree and got into serious trouble. I think I may have actually killed the tree. And my canoe did not turn out well, didn't hold water. Hand out stone tablets and chisels. I love it. All right, so let's do some Ask Michael, Ask Taxi CEO anything. Yay! The book will go into my archive. I could ask members to opt in or opt out. Yeah, because that wouldn't matter. And the funny thing is, well, it's not funny at all. The thing about printing is the cost of printing up 1,000 of them. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air here, but I'm probably not that far off. Like 1,000 of them would cost $4,500 to print. To do 2,000 might be like $5,100. So it's the setup and getting the presses rolling and everything. So, it gets cheaper by the unit the more you do. And the cost differential between doing 1,000 and 2,000 is like, wow, not that much. Cork trees regenerate their bark. That's good. I love a good cork tree. I don't know about you guys, but I think they're awesome. All right, let's take the first question. And this one is from John Rossi. I'm a taxi member and a singer-songwriter. A company, which I'm not going to name, a film trailer library, sent me an agreement in which they want 100% of the publishing, and I get to keep 100% of the writer's share, which includes the rights to and ownership of the master. They will pay me 50% of the license fee, in other words, the sync fee, and they want to receive 100% of the. They want to receive 100% of the performing and broadcast fees. Honestly, John, the way this is written, a horn. What show would be complete without a garbage truck or a horn, right? I'm not really sure that you have accurately represented the deal here. I could be wrong, or maybe they changed their deal, but I'm pretty familiar with most of our clients, and most of their deals are basically 50-50 deals. They'll pay me 50% license fee. So you sign with that library. You didn't say if it's exclusive or non-exclusive. They want 100% of the publisher's share, not 100% of the publishing, but 100% of the publisher's share is a little more accurate way to say that. And I keep 100% of the writer's share, which includes rights to and ownership of the master. Most of the time when libraries do a deal like this, they get the composition, which is the publisher's share, and oftentimes, if not almost every time, get the what do you call it? The recording, the master recording as well. They will pay me 50% of the sync fee, which is, let's say a show wants to use it, and they say, here's $5,000, so the library gets half of the $5,000, and you, the member, would get the other half. They want to receive 100% of the performing and broadcast fees, which SB, I don't know, which I guess SB means should be, collected by ASCAP, BMI, etc. See, that's actually a performance royalty, which I think you addressed a little earlier on. But I know that company, and I know that many, many, many taxi members have signed their deal. I think that you may have messed up the representation a little bit here, but just know that it's people love the company. They've done really well with them, and the deal, almost all deals with libraries come in a couple of varieties. Sometimes they will pay you up front. They do what's called a buyout. So they might give you $100, $200, $300, $400, $500 up front, and they buy the publisher share, 100% of the publisher share. They also get the master rights to the recording. And because they paid you something up front, if they get a sync fee of $5,000, you don't get to participate in that because they already paid you something up front. Another kind of deal that happens is that they don't pay you anything up front, which is very, very common. But they do give you half of the sync fee. So if there's a $5,000 payment to use it in XYZ TV show, that you would then split that $500 with them. Your song could languish in the library forever, never get used, and you're never going to see half of that $5K. That's why some people like to do the deal where they get the $500 up front. Doesn't really matter all that much if it never gets used because they got some money from it. And if it gets used, even better, that's icing on the cake, as they say. Anyway, you could ask this of your fellow members on the Taxi forum at forums.taxi.com. Please don't mention the company name, because when members mention the company name online, then other people who are not Taxi members go on there and go, "Ooh, Google that company, and I'm going to reach out and pitch my own music." So you're basically creating competition, and some of the people are not very well behaved on a business level. So just better to not mention the name. All right, here's one from Serena Thompson. What times of year are best for season-specific placements, as in Christmas or Halloween? The question kind of answers itself in that, obviously, as we get closer to Halloween or we get closer to Christmas, you're going to hear more and more of that music getting used. And I'm not entirely sure if you mean, you do say specific placements. So yes, the answer to placements is obviously a few months before the holidays hit, because in that couple of weeks before Christmas, you're going to see a lot of Hallmark movies about families getting together for Christmas, or Lifetime Channel, Christmas stuff, whatever. Christmas everywhere, TV commercials, goofy little things on news broadcasts that need Christmas music. And it comes in all shapes and sizes, obviously. It could be, a very heartfelt home for Christmas with the family thing, or it could be a goofy thing with sleigh bells about Rudolph's red nose. I'm not even going to go down that road, but sometimes reindeers get red noses from something other than the cold weather. You got to watch those reindeer. Anyway, so yeah, as the holidays draw near, the music gets used more frequently. Now, you could also ask the question, when do they start signing that music? When do the libraries start looking? And I would say that probably the earliest we start getting hit up by the libraries is July, August is when they start running listings looking for Christmas stuff. Halloween, not nearly as big as the Christmas thing. Christmas is it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, as they say. So, and sometimes we will literally get hit up 10 days before Christmas. Somebody's got a last-minute revision on an ad they're doing for Best Buy Christmas deals, and for whatever reason they decided to go with different music on this one. The library that the commercial production company normally uses, they felt like they kind of ran the gamut, didn't come up with anything that was really special. So the library may reach out to Taxi and say, "Can you find us a last-minute Christmas thing?" And as you may or may not remember, we just ran a listing doing a Christmas compilation. Taxi's compilation collections that go out to virtually all of our active production music library companies that we work with. We do them for election stuff. We just sent one out. I actually think it might have gone out today, or I thought I just felt a little earthquake. Anyway, our compilations are extremely well received by the industry. People love them. The companies love them. Virtually everything on the compilations gets signed. We hear sometimes from a library, it's like, "Oh, I called this member up. I love that song, but somebody else beat me to the punch." We had some complaints from some of our European and other clients that are outside of North America. It's like, hey, you send it out so it's perfectly timed for your American clients, but those of us who are in Europe are sound asleep, so therefore everything's been picked over. So we had to actually sit down and really think about the best time to send it out. So I think it's going out at like 5 p.m. in the U.S. I'm probably wrong about that, but whatever. So, each continent, if you will, there's no perfect solution, but each continent gets a reasonably good crack at it being fresh and not picked over. Okay, that's that. Hope that answered it. All right, there's one from a gentleman named Glenn Erickson that very long, very nicely, no bad attitude or anything, and I feel bad. I'm going to get to this one if we have time for it, because it's long and it's complicated and will take a long time to answer. But he's been a member for a while, and his stuff always gets rejected, and he feels like a spurned lover. The last rejection was just a couple of weeks ago, where all 45 songs were rejected, including one sung by my best artist. I must have had over 100 songs rejected over the past month or two. Hopefully we'll get to this, Glenn, but I know without even reading any further or listening to the music, you are way, way, way over submitting. Nobody's got that many things that are possible contenders. So, maybe we'll get to this, but I feel badly. But you're using the same company, the same listings, written by the same people, screened ostensibly by the same screeners, all that stuff. And of course, we don't want anybody to feel like a spurned lover, because we'd like them to come back and renew their membership. But we have to be honest. If something's not going to work, we have to say it's not going to work for this particular listing. So, he says, so there seems to be no need to renew my membership once this one is completed. You're just, a normal member submits 2, 3, 4 things a month. You're submitting 45 for one listing. Nobody has 45 possible contenders. A music library probably wouldn't have 45 contenders for a particular request. You're just way, way, way over submitting is the root of the problem. Anyway, next question is from Tom Tang, Tange. Isn't that what the astronauts used to drink in space? Think about it. For those of you who are old enough, remember Tang, the powdery orange drink, which was really good. It's probably filled with chemicals, not great for you. Now I'm going to get sued for slamming Tang. Can't get it forward. Modest ProTools studio. Well, Dean Crepane, one of our most successful members, his studio couldn't be any more modest. Having better gear is not necessarily the key to success. Can't seem to get it forward. Not writing anything at this point. I get feedback on outdated sounds. I like to write with strings, piano, and have a limited budget. Many live recordings are with trumpet and flugelhorn. I'm not giving up. Any advice that might help me move forward? I do have one composition that was forwarded to XYZ Library in Australia. It's really hard to give advice on something without hearing the music and without reading the listings. There's not a lot of context here, but I will tell you that I understand the frustration. I really do. I've been doing this for 32 years. I've met a lot of frustrated people, but the fact remains that people like Matt Vanderbo, the guy didn't know anything. He turned on Pro Tools. This is his own words. Turned on Pro Tools, looked at the splash screen that had the Pro Tools logo on it, went, okay, now what? He knew nothing about recording, didn't even have a regular piano keyboard. He was playing notes on his ASCII keyboard. He was just making presumably horrible music by his own admission. And pitching too wildly, but he eventually got it because he came to the road rally. and he learned from others. He hung out on the taxi forum, learned from his fellow members who also gave him objective opinions and advice. And now he is one of our most successful members of all time. He's very generous with his time and his knowledge. And as he often says when we've had him on TAXITV or a panel at the Road Rally, if I can do it, anybody can. And I truly believe that. I have seen so many people go from like getting no traction whatsoever, just getting everything wrong until the little light bulb went off for them. And then they just started doing what the successful members did before them, and lo and behold, oh, look at that, I got a forward. Lo and behold, I signed a deal with the library. Lo and behold, I got a placement. Now you just need to why did that happen? What did you get right? How can you repeat that? So people want to believe that somebody else is born more talented or more gifted than they are. I contend that the vast majority of successful taxi members over 32 years were not born any more gifted or talented than their fellow members. Honestly, talent doesn't have a lot to do with it. Maybe one form of talent in making film and TV music is keeping it really simple. They're not looking for who is the best piano player in the world. They're not looking for who writes the most inspiring classical composition. They're looking for music that works in the context of a scene. It's not a contest for we're trying to find the best song or the best composer. It's about finding the right song or the composer that's got the right piece of music. As I've mentioned many, many times on the show, there are plenty of times where we have forwarded a B-plus piece of music, and there were A-pluses that didn't get forwarded because they just didn't nail it. I'm going to use the shoe store analogy. If you go to a shoe store and you're a lady that needs a 3.5-inch heel POTA pump and a 7B for a wedding next weekend, and the sales guy brings you out a really good-looking Bass-Weegian penny loafer and a men's 9.5D in Cordovan Brown, it's a great shoe. Awesome shoe. I used to love Bass-Weegian loafers, by the way, certain time in my life, my preppy period. But the truth of the matter is, it doesn't matter how great the song is or how great the shoe is. If the lady needs a lady shoe and a 7.5B with a 3.5-inch heel, getting a dude's 9.5D Bass-Weegian loafer, great shoe, doesn't fit the need. So there you go. Music is just the same. It really is exactly the same. They are looking for music. They don't want the audience going, oh my gosh, that's the best song I've ever heard, because if they do, they're now ignoring the dialogue or the action in the scene. So they want music that enhances the emotion or revs up the action a little bit, but they don't want the music to be the star, which I know is quite antithetical for musicians. It's like your whole life you've wanted to stand out and have people go, that's awesome. And I understand that. I really, really do. But the film and TV music industry isn't about standing out and having people go, that's awesome. If anything, you want the executive producer of the show or the music supervisor or the editor or the film's director saying, that fits the scene awesomely. It's perfect for the scene. It's not about greatest piece of music ever done. Excuse me. Cough drop time. So you're going to hear a cough drop rattling around in my mouth. Sorry. That's right. Luke in Music says, Tang Orange Powder, Breakfast of NASA Champions. Well, isn't it appropriate that I'm wearing my NASA t-shirt today? I kind of feel guilty that I should be wearing like a SpaceX shirt. But not going to get into that argument. Average number of submissions we get a month by MMS. Honestly, I don't know per month. And I want to know, MMS, why are you asking the question? I always ask people who say, how many submissions do you get for a listing, typical listing? And I want to know why they ask. So I'm curious to see why you asked the question so that I can answer it to the best of my ability. It's actually not classified information. No, not to you. I meant how many do the people listening submit? Oh, I see. You want to know from your fellow members how many submissions they make. And honestly, I'm guessing the answer is going to be it depends on the type of music they make. If they're making orchestral hybrid trailer music, that takes a really long time and a lot more work to create than acoustic guitar, dobro, harmonica, 3-instrument. Wham, 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 wham. See, I could get forward with that, right? So it all depends on the genre. And are you doing it full time? Are you doing it part time? Did you get what I personally call new memberitis? Oh boy, for the first time in my life ever, I've got an outlet for my music, and I'm just going to send everything because they'll hear how good it is. And they may very well hear how good it is, but it's more about being right than good. All right, you guys are getting some answers. 1 or 2 per week, 100 to 120 a year, 2 per 3 a month. You know, I love that on the forum, people often use numbers as metrics. I understand the human need to put yourself, like, where am I in the hierarchy? Am I doing this right? Am I getting that wrong? But there's so many contextual things. Context, by the way, is my favorite word ever. So many contextual things that, what if you're doing my favorite, which is Dutch, what did I say the other day? Dutch heavy metal with a female vocal. If that's your bag, you're not going to submit a lot because you might only see 2 listings a year asking for that. So the more kind of oddball your little niche is, the less opportunities there are going to be for you, therefore less submissions. Wow, Jeff Watts, only 2 submissions last year? I'm coming over after the show. We're going to talk about that. I wish Swampy Q's were still on the desirable list. Yeah, they had a really good run for like 8 or 10 years where we were getting requests for Swampy Q's all the time. Actually, I'm going to make a note. Where's my Post-it pad? Can never find it. Oh, there it is. I'm going to make a note. You're right. We haven't seen a lot of Swampy. It's because the industry just doesn't seem to need it. Yet I hear plenty of shows with Swampy Q's. Now, libraries really bulked up on Swampy Q's during the whole, what was that show with the guys? Oh gosh. The guys who now search for hidden treasure, dimes and quarters in the front yard. But, those guys, Duck Dynasty was the show that inspired a lot of other shows with similar music, and therefore a lot of requests from a lot of libraries looking for twangy wham, 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 wham. So, I think Duck Dynasty may be coming back. Did I hear that somewhere? Betty Anderson. Yo, Betty. Swampy, making a note. We do reach out to the libraries if we think that some of the stuff is getting a little dated sounding in their catalog because they're using old sample libraries or they signed orchestral stuff 15 years ago and it just doesn't sound cool anymore because it doesn't have any electronic hybrid elements thrown in there. We'll reach out to the library and say, our boss, who's obsessed with all things music licensing related, was actually on your site over the weekend, and that's a true story. And thought that your orchestral stuff was lacking some modernity and some electro hybrid aspects. Do you want us to run some listings and find you some more updated stuff like that? And they go, oh yeah, sure, that's a good idea. So maybe we can get them to run some Swampy listings. Obviously, if they don't need it, they don't need it. There you go. Okay, next question. Here's several from Brian Heindeer. That's what a drunk guy says to his wife when he gets home 3 o'clock in the morning smelling like booze and perfume. Heindeer. Nope, sorry. Anyway, Brian asks, he's got several. How important is it the music we send is registered with the U.S. Copyright Office? Do you have any opinions on blockchain? In case that's another question. I'm not a music attorney. Any answers I give here are purely for entertainment purposes. Just ask my lawyer. So you will find that your fellow taxi members will tell you, especially for instrumental cues, that they don't register the copyright. I can't say never, but it's extremely unlikely that somebody is going to steal when they could just do it themselves and not risk a lawsuit. Nobody wants a copyright infringement lawsuit because it's like 150 grand if you get nailed to the wall with that. So they're probably not going to steal it. So people don't register the copyrights, and libraries sometimes prefer that you don't, because when they sign it, they may want to register the copyright. Same thing could be true for registering it with the PRO. They may want to actually do the work themselves. So my personal opinion, this is not legal advice, is if you've written a song that you think is your once-in-a-lifetime smash hit that Adele could cut, or Ariana Grande, or somebody really big could cut your song and have a massive radio and streaming hit, register that copyright. Go to Library of Congress and register that copyright. But if you're somebody doing instrumental cues and you're doing, 5 or 10 in a month, do you really want to spend the money on registering all those copyrights? And the registration is going to change when the library signs it and they become the publisher. So there you go. You hope Duck Dynasty never returns. Well, it's not like anybody forced you to watch it, William. You could have just changed the channel. MMS, I got to get through this list before I start answering other questions from there. Do you have any opinion on a blockchain copyright service such as SongSecure.com? I don't know them. I know other services like that, and any music attorney will tell you you can mail a copy of the song to yourself and leave, registered mail, return receipt requested, and leave it in the envelope, never open it up. It's a poor man's copyright, not going to hold up in a court of law. Kind of makes sense that it would. It's like, hey, obviously it was done on this date because look, there's the postmark on it. Does not hold up in a court of law. Maybe, and again, I'm not expert on this because I'm not familiar with this service, but I am familiar with other services. And music attorneys have said on this very show and at the road rally that it just doesn't matter how else what other methodology you use to prove that you wrote the song or the track on such and such a date, blockchain included, because the law clearly states that in order for it to hold up in a court of law, that it's got to have the copyright registered with the Copyright Office in the United States. You got to prove through that documentation when it was done. Even though you could prove it in other ways, they don't allow it. So there's that. Can I explain the taxi dispatch service? Yes. Years ago, actually, I can tell you it was 2001 when we moved into this office. All of a sudden, taxis started getting a lot of listings for film and TV. When we rolled out the company initially in 1992, it was almost all record industry stuff. Didn't even think about film and TV. And then around 1994, I got a call from a woman that said, can you find me horrific instrumental music? And she meant for a horror flick. And we did. And imagine a time when virtually no production music libraries had music from people like you in their catalogs. You basically had to kind of be in the inner circle of production music library composers, of which there were very few, and even fewer production music libraries, in order to get your stuff in those catalogs. And frankly, because they did not have a lot of different composers, and many of the composers were doing different genres. In my personal opinion, those catalogs sounded very homogenous and very canned, and that's where the expression canned music probably came from. It's just, same guy that was doing a disco track was also doing, I don't know, like a Nine Inch Nails style hard rock track, and it kind of showed, and the stuff just didn't sound all that authentic. So this lady asked me, we found her some horror stuff, it ended up in the film, and our first Taxi member ever, guy named Steve Clark from Van Nuys, California, I still remember that, he got a placement in the horror film. And that was really the shot heard around the world. All of a sudden, other libraries started realizing I can run listings of Taxi and find music from these unknown composers working out of basement and bedroom studios. And you got to remember that the gear really wasn't there prior to that. This was around the time of the Alesis ADAT, which was 8 tracks of digital on a VHS tape. Prior to that, basically your only option was going to a real studio, maybe a little 8-track studio for $35 an hour, or a 24-track like world-class place like the one behind me that would have been anywhere from $150 to $250 an hour back then for a facility like that. So not a lot of music was getting made by independent musicians because they couldn't afford it. When the Alesis ADAT came out, and there was also a Tascam 8-track digital thing that worked on like a little mini cassette, and then ultimately ProTools and Logic and everything. All of a sudden, people who had it in their head and their heart could make great sounding recordings at home, really opened the marketplace up. So we decided to do a thing called Dispatch, which was just for film and TV, and it was faster turnaround. So we hired a guy who ran that. It was kind of like running a company within a company. And he needed his own fairly large office, so there's a real estate cost involved. So we had a salary, we had the office space involved. I think at one point maybe we had an assistant working with him. So it was a business within a business, and we decided to charge more for it because it didn't appeal to all of our members. Most of our members who were doing record stuff really didn't care about doing an instrumental track for a horror flick. Over time, and I'm talking over several years probably, sorry, I'm just checking, make sure that my signal is good. Over a period of years, everything seemed to become about film and TV, a lot of stuff. So we were thinking about killing Dispatch, and the members that signed up for it said, no, it's almost all instrumental listings, keep it going. So we just kind of morphed it into this place that was almost all instrumental listings. So we just left it alone because the members were just downright irate about the fact that we're thinking about getting rid of it. And we've considered various options. Do we get rid of it but raise the price of regular Taxi, which we have never raised the price in 32 years. So you can imagine what just normal, cost of living increases, inflation, dirty word now. It's amazing to me that we're able to offer Taxi service for the same $300 a year that we did back in 1992. When you could buy a house for $200,000, that's now like $650,000. You could buy a car. I think the average price of a car back then was like $18,000, and now it's like $43,000. Whatever the numbers are, and I'm doing that from memory. We just didn't want to mess with getting rid of Dispatch. However, I can't reveal this. There's something we're working on that will be something that every single Taxi member all over the entire globe will, I believe, love this new thing. And we're talking about the possibility of getting rid of Dispatch as it is a standalone thing, which costs $149 a year, and just rolling all those listings, which are generally about 4 extra listings a week, so another 200 listings a year, and rolling that in with regular Taxi, so they're just more of those instrumental requests, and possibly raising the price of Taxi $50 a year. So you get something worth $150 for $50, not to mention we've never raised the price. Our overhead has gone up in ways that you can't even imagine. So there you go on that. Going back to See a lot of briefs that mention a music library. Is a particular show or movie looking for a song? If there is a particular show or movie looking for a song, how does that equate to a music library? Well, music libraries are film and TV music specific publishers. So they go out and sign a bunch of stuff. And just because you got something into a library does not mean it's going to get used. Same thing would be true if you signed with Warner Chappell. Maybe Sheryl Crow never cuts your song. But libraries build a catalog of many different types of genres. They get to know the types of shows they work with. They generally won't go to the trouble of signing a piece of music that's not genre-wise or aesthetically something that their client base would typically ask for. So they try and get stuff that their client base would need or would ask for. So if that client, let's say, a show called Hunter's Way, about duck hunters, what are the odds? That show would have a relationship with 2, 3, 4, 5 different libraries and reach out to them with a brief. Do you guys have any of this style? The libraries come to Taxi to find that stuff because we do the down and dirty work of eliminating all the stuff that isn't on target for what they need. Again, it goes back to, do you have what is usable? Nobody is looking for, that's the greatest song I've ever heard. It could be the greatest song, but if it doesn't fit the need, not great in that context. So that's what a music library is. A music library is a publisher. It's a catalog. If a particular show or movie is looking for a song, sometimes it's the executive producer of the show comes directly. Taxi could be the music supervisor, which people think that a music supervisor is like an A&R person. If they just get my song, if they get me, if they love my song, they're going to put it in their movie. No, they're not. They're going to say, this would work well in that scene. Now let me show the show's executive producer or the director of the movie. Because ultimately, in the vast majority of cases, the music supervisor just picks what's going to be presented to the decision makers, not making the decision on himself or herself, okay? So hopefully that clears it up a little bit. Sorry, chewing a cough drop to get rid of it. Actually, I'm going to make it a little cooler in here. Now that I've got an air conditioner that I can operate remotely. Oh, I hate eco mode. Goes into eco mode, and then it just does what it wants. And I sit here going, it's hot. Because we're saving ecos. No, I want to be cool. No eco saves for me today. This one's from Michael Lee. I recently got an email from a music library called, I'm not going to mention the name. They want me to sign over my song through a Taxi Forward for possible sync placements. My first offer for a song I just released September of 2024, so it's great. However, one of the clauses in the contract says they will get 100% of any performance and broadcasting of my song. You know what? I'm going to reach out to that library owner and see if they change their deal. They typically don't ask for 100%. A typical deal is they will take 100% of the publisher. Imagine, here's a publishing dollar. So publisher share, writer share. So they get 100% of the publisher share. Obviously, this is not equally divided, my bad, Art. They get 100% of the publisher share. And then you typically get 100% of the writer share. So if my art was better and my line of demarcation was actually down the middle, you each get the same thing. It's just theirs has one label on it, yours, has another. Yeah, Michael, you're obviously new to Taxi, so I'm really glad you asked this question. You're watching the show, hopefully. That's how music libraries work. they sign music that they think their clients are going to need. Like I said before, if they hear the greatest song in the world, they're not going to sign it, because if they don't have a client that could use it, it would be a waste of time to work on the paperwork. Plus, they're all pretty good-hearted people, to be honest with you. I've not met one that was a scumbag ever. We've never had a complaint from any of our members in 32 years, and countless thousands of members that have signed deals and gotten placements. I mean, literally, it's countless. Never once have I had anybody that I'm thinking, make sure I'm not saying something not true, but I don't think we've ever had a case where somebody said, this library has ripped me off. They're a bunch of evil a-holes. They're like us. They're musicians too. They have a friend in the industry that needs a lot of music. They created a lot of music. Now they're getting requests for more music than they can supply on their own. So they start their own catalog and then discover, whoa, this is way more work than I thought it would be. But the libraries, that's what they do. It's like a regular song publisher, except rather than artists coming, Sheryl Crow looking to Warner Chappell for a piece of music. It's XYZ. It's Duck Dynasty looking for wham, 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 wham. Like my arpeggio. Really good one, huh? So, yeah, we will check this out. I'm going to make a note. Maybe their contract is worded poorly. It is fair. If they're doing a 50-50 deal where they get 100% of the writer's share and you get 100% of the publisher's share, that's absolutely normal. And yes, there's no guarantee. They put it in their catalog. Nobody could guarantee anything gets used in the industry. But they would be foolish to go to the trouble of vetting it and signing it and having it in their catalog and not pitching it if they didn't think that people could use it. But I'm going to use one of my favorite examples I've used many times over the years. There's a scene in a movie where a 13-year-old kid's parent, let's say his dad just passed away and his mom left the family years ago, so it's just the kid and his dad. Now the dad has passed away. The movie scene is the kid goes to the funeral. Obviously, that's heartbreaking, very sad. Now the kid comes home and the aunts, the uncles, the friends and family members are all downstairs eating ham and cheese sandwiches and salads and drinking a beer, whatever people do after a funeral at a wake, whatever you call it, condolence call. So the kid's upstairs in his bedroom, and he's got his face buried in his hands, and he's reflecting. He's having a moment where he's thinking about, geez, I never should have yelled at my dad. I shouldn't have been such a little putz. It's like he's gone now, and I can't tell him how sorry I am for getting into it with him last week, or whatever. Just regrets that he didn't have a tighter relationship with his dad. So you could have an awesome disco song. Is it going to work in that scene with the kid sitting on the side of the bed with his face buried in his hands? Of course not. Would a metal song work there? Nope. Could be the greatest metal song in the world. Could it be a hip-hop song? Probably not. Could it be an acoustic singer-songwriter song thinking that's got lyrics roughly about, I wish I'd told you more? A very general theme, I wish I'd told you more. About what? How much I love you, how much I appreciate you, how much I miss you. So that's the nature of what music libraries do, is they help the people in the industry who need to slug something in that scene that works for that scene. I don't know why I do know why people have long held this misconception that it's about some music supervisor is going to hear my song, they are going to love it, and they are going to put it in their movie. I can tell you with absolute certainty that in the history of the entire film and TV music industry, well, at least the supervisors that I know and have long-term relationships with, and the library owners, I've asked this question of all of them. Did you ever put anything in a TV show or a movie because you just thought the song was frickin' awesome? No, they can't, because it's got to work with the scene. It's got to make that moment with that kid with his face buried in his hands and teardrops streaming out from his fingers. It's got to make you cry in your seat in the theater. It's got to make you wish that you could reach through that screen and turn back the hands of time and bring that poor kid's dad back so he could tell him all the things that he can't. But the kid can't sit there in his bedroom going, oh, Dad, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. No, they're going to put a song in there, and it's probably going to be singer-songwriter. It's probably going to be acoustic guitar. It's going to be one instrument, maybe a cello or something added to that. And it's going to be a very simple but poignant lyric about, I wish I had another day with you. I wish I'd said all these things. Just an overarching idea and emotion. Not, remember that time we went to the Little League game and you didn't buy me a hot dog and I got really pissed off at you and then I kicked your car and made a dent in it and you took it to the Ford dealership and had the dent banged out and I had to pay for it? Too much information. It's not going to go with the scene anyway. So what are they looking for? Something really basic about, I wish I had communicated better with you. And it probably wouldn't have the word communicated. Man, I went to like a wedding Thursday night, a condolence call last night, just all kinds of stuff all weekend long. If I am getting sick before the road rally, I am going to be really pissed off. Not that I don't have like 7 or 8 weeks to get rid of it, but I'm in full tilt work mode. Okay, here's one from Dean Grine. Grind, Grein. I have 33 songs and I own 100% of the copyright for each of them. I wrote the lyrics for all the songs. I own all the copyrights to each of them with signed work for hire agreements from any collaborators I use, such as producers, vocalists, blah, blah, blah. My question for you, Michael, is, or has to do with reasons for not accepting any of my songs. Most of the time, I get the genre is wrong with an automatic dismissal. You know what? We just hired a new screener who's working remotely. And last night, he's working outside the U.S., so we were on a weird time zone thing. I did a Zoom call with him last night. This guy has been a major label A&R person. He's been around the industry for a very long time. You would be thrilled if you knew who it was that was listening to your music. And he's just started screening over like the last 2 or 3 weeks. He said, I'm astonished by how many Taxi members don't know what genre their music is. And we've heard this over and over and over from many, if not most, or all of the new screeners. They're just amazing. It's like the kind of unspoken rule of thumb is 80% of the time that we don't forward something, it's because nobody would listen to that and go, that is singer-songwriter, or that is pop, or that, and not even complicated genres. It's just people submit stuff and you go, what the heck were you thinking? It's not that genre at all. And if I pick up the phone and call those members in the nicest possible way, of course, and say, what were you thinking? And they go, well, I was hoping they would hear it and they would just fall so in love with it that they wouldn't really care about what they were looking for, what they needed. I thought that they would just hear that my song is so awesomely special that they would use it. But you know, from what I said over the last 15 minutes, that ain't going to happen. Most of the time I get the genre wrong, which is an automatic dismissal. I completely miss the mark on what the buyer is looking for. These things I can learn and correct my mistakes. However, almost all songs the screeners gig me for also has to do with the song production. I can't go back and change the entire song to fit their demands. I have over 100 rejections. What shall I do? If you're submitting stuff, first of all, Dean, there's more information here than I have time to get into a one-on-one and hold everybody else at bay while I'm kind of giving you a personal one-to-one here. But it sounds like you're submitting material that you're probably recording at an outside studio using outside producers. You've got this stash of songs and what we call here fitting a square peg in a round hole. If somebody is looking for a tender, introspective singer-songwriter ballad about missing you or generic loss, I can't believe you're gone, whatever the case is, and you've got a song where, I got a song where the word gone is in it, and I wrote it in 1998 and I recorded it in 2005. I'm going to submit that because the listing says gone. So they'll plug one word and submit a song that's got the word gone in it, but it doesn't fit any of the other criteria. So that's what the screeners are up against. Again, the taxi members that are successful, people that are making an extra 10 grand a year, 20 grand a year, 50, maybe even 100 grand a year or more, they figured out how to get that stuff right. And you can too, because you guys are all using the same service. They're getting the same listings. They're getting heard ostensibly by the same screeners. It's not like you've been singled out. Oh, there's that guy again. There's Dean stuff. He never gets anything right. No, they're hoping they can forward you because they'd like to have you be a happy member that continues renewing, that gives them more work down the road than a pissed off member who's like, this taxi thing doesn't work. Well, it does work for the people who pay attention and follow these rules. And that's why we do TAXITV. That's why we do the road rally. And that's why we have the forum. Dean, you should come to the road rally. You should listen. You should join us for the listening panels in the ballroom. And you'll go, oh, I get it. I get it. Now I can hear it. That was a great song. Was it what they were looking for? Nope. And the last one from the outside world, or from you guys that mailed them in before the show. Hi, Michael. I'm super excited to be coming to my first road rally. I joined Taxi this summer. This is Nicholas Scherzinger. What's your recommendation in terms of how to have music ready to share with various people at the rally? Is it a QR code to a YouTube channel or Google Drive enough? Yes. Quite frankly, you hit the nail on the head. If I post something on YouTube, does it immediately disqualify the work for me to submit for future forwards? No. When a production music library goes to sign you, they may ask you to take your thing off of YouTube. Again, that's a lengthy thing with a lot of caveats, but generally speaking, if the music is out there, once they control it, because they're now the publisher, they want to control where it is and be able to track the money and stuff. So yeah, that's what people, we used to have people bring CDs. They would meet somebody, engage in a conversation with them, and then say, oh, and then the industry person might say, well, I'd like to hear what you're doing. Do you have a CD? And they would hand them a CD. Nowadays, it's like, I'd like to hear what you're doing. I'm looking for a business card. I don't have one nearby. But they hold up the business card that's got the QR code on it, and they zap it with their phone. Or the smart thing would be bring a business card with your name, your best email address that you look at every day of your life, your cell phone number, not your landline number that goes to a voicemail or an answering machine with a micro cassette in it. You need to know that if you get a phone call from an 818 or 310 area code, it's probably somebody from the industry in LA reaching out to you saying, I'm interested in your song. So I would print up, go to, oh God, what is it called? The print place, not Printful, wherever, and make a couple hundred business cards that have your name. I would say something on it like underneath your name, and your name should be in pretty big letters, and underneath a film TV composer. And if you happen to be into making like organic music with acoustic guitars and dobros and stuff like that, and a B3 organ, not doing a bunch of EDM stuff, say that. Say organic music or something that gives them some indication. So when they're getting ready to toss that card, they go, oh, here's somebody that does Cajun acoustic. And if you think that you are creating an advantage for yourself by listing off 20 genres, you're not. When you are just getting to know people and putting yourself out there, the instinct is to say, I do rock, I do pop, I do country, I do EDM, I do orchestral. People in the industry go, okay, that's an amateur. And I don't think they really understand what it is that they're doing. After you get to know them, you can disclose the fact that you're capable of doing more genres, but just pick the genre that you do best and excel at that and use that as your entree, as your foot in the door move. like I said, once you get to know them better, they may say, do you do any other genres? Yes, I do. My 3 strongest are, but you should never rattle off like 10 different genres. Get to know them really well and let them discover that about you rather than cramming it down their throat. Okay, that's that. Now let's take some from the guys in the chat room. So the rule is, if you want me to notice your question, put the word question, like Ken Crombie just did, in all caps so that I can see it clearly. Michael, can you answer all the questions on the email you sent us under this live feed? Liz, can you print out, I didn't print one today, the promo email that went out, and I will, clearly we're going to go 15 minutes over on today's show. But yeah, I can answer a lot of those for you. Great, Nicholas. I'm glad that you found that helpful. We really do want you guys to succeed. It's just people don't know. They've not worked in this industry. It's like, I'm going to become a pipe fitter, and
I did it before, so I was all ready.
Thank you. And I'm going to go, fit pipes in the basement of a major New York City high-rise. You got to know something about pipe fitting. You got to know your industry. Okay, the questions that were in the email, and I'm going to go pretty fast on this because I could do an entire hour just on this. Want to know what production music libraries are looking for? Get the taxi listings. Even like music supervisors, the one I was on the phone with an hour before I started the show, he said, if I want to see what the world is looking for, I just look at the taxi listings on your website, because that's an amalgamation of what everybody's looking for. So there's the answer to that. Okay, want to know why Hollywood studios won't use you to score their blockbuster films? Because they're investing $75 million to make the movie. They're not going to try a new composer no matter how good you are. I used to have a friend that was head of music at Universal Pictures. I mean, he was the head of the department. And he'd worked under the head of the department for like 20 years. Then eventually she left and he became the new head of the department. We were good friends. I heard a taxi composer that I thought was just amazing. I called my friend up, said, I got to bring this guy over. This is the best unknown composer I've ever heard in my life. And you're like, okay, have him score 2 scenes from movies that I've worked on in the last couple of years. So the guy did a couple of scenes from one of the versions of King Kong. We go to my friend's office over on the Universal lot. We sit down. My friend's a little nervous, my musician friend. We play the video, the first scene, and my executive friend looks at the young man and says, you did a better job on that than I believe that Hans Zimmer did. What a compliment, right? You did a better job on that scene than Hans did. Wow. That must have been an ego rush in a good way. Played the next one. He said, I think you equaled the work that he did. So the guy was just feeling really good, thinking, okay, the guy's, my friend Harry at Universal is going to go, okay, we're going to hand you the next big blockbuster film. Harry looks at me and he goes, Michael, do you want to tell him or shall I? And I said, I'll tell him. He goes, okay. So I turned to the taxi composer and I said, they're not going to give you a film to do. And why? Because you're not famous. Because the people that are putting up the money to make this film, would they hire an unknown director of photography? No. Would they hire an unknown writer? No. Would they hire an unknown director, even if they're talented? No, because they don't know how it's going to go when the work actually begins. The end product may be impressive, but maybe it took 3 times longer to get to that end product than somebody who's equally as good and has been doing it for 30 years and knows how to get it done quickly. So there are all these variables. More than anything, it's about, we're investing tens of millions of dollars. Therefore, we want to eliminate everything that could go wrong. So we're hiring known quotients for our DP, director of photography, for our music supervisor, for our scoring guy. So that's why. Want to know why your mixes don't sound like hit records? Everybody's thinking, what plug-in do I get? Honestly, the answer is you've got 10 pounds of poo-poo in a 5-pound diaper. That more often than not is the problem. It's really hard to get a good mix where you can hear every instrument and it's got that sheen and sparkle and yet bottom end and depth to it that like a hit record has. And that's because hit records are made by hit record producers that know not to put 10 pounds of doo-doo in a 5-pound diaper. And that is the easiest way to get great sounding mixes. Another little piece of advice is, use a bus compressor. But don't slam the crap out of it. Just give it have the meter, kicking back like 2 or 3 dBs when something intense happens in the mix. That's it. But you will be absolutely shocked when you start. My dad always said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Well, I was guilty of this back when I started producing as well. It's like, oh man, we should do a blah, blah, blah part there. Wouldn't that sound awesome? And we'd do it and we'd spend an hour and a half getting that part in. Everybody in the band's like, that's awesome. And then a week later, I'm going to mix it and go, I've got 10 pounds of poop in a 5-pound diaper. And I had to start eliminating stuff because the less stuff you have, the more air and the more room it gives the other stuff to breathe and show off its presence. So there you go. Where's the sweet spot on an acoustic guitar? I do have 2 guitars in here, but they're both in cases and we're running short on time. The bottom line is the sweet spot. Some people say it's the 14th fret or something. Years ago, I worked with a guy named Tom Dowd. Google him, Tom Dowd, D-O-W-D. One of the most legendary engineers, producers of all time, and I literally spent hundreds of hours in the studio with that guy when I was just a puppy in the industry learning stuff. And he one day said to me, it's a great story, he goes, you want to learn how to get a great acoustic guitar sound? I'm like, yeah, tell me. He goes, all right, everybody's going to lunch, you and I are hanging back. So everybody walks out and he says, all right, let's go out in the studio. He sits down in a chair and he's got an acoustic guitar in his hand. He says, all right, get down on your knees. And I was like, uh-oh, awkward. And he goes, not for that, you idiot. I mean, literally saw the fear on my face. I thought, oh my God, this is how people make in the music industry. But that wasn't where he was going with it at all. So get down on your knees and move your ear around. And stop when it sounds best. And I stop. He goes, that's how you get a great guitar sound. Put the microphone right where your ear is. There you go. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that with a guitar amp turned up to 110 dBs because you're going to blow your eardrums out. But an acoustic guitar, absolutely. So there you go. Best way to mic an electric guitar amp for the best sound? My personal favorite, everybody's got their own shtick. Every engineer's got what they prefer, and so they should. Some painters like to use a fluffy brush, others use a bristlier brush. So I always found that using the venerable Shure SM57 right up on the grill cloth, maybe not touching it, but like a 1/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch away from the grill on the amp, not pointed at the cone, not pointed at the edge of the speaker. Some guys will take the mic, move it in close, and then angle it 45 degrees. No, none of that. I'm looking for a prop, but let's say there's the front of the guitar amp. Hold on. I probably have the perfect thing for this. Oh, my legs are stiff. What do I happen to have laying around my office? Why, it's a Shure 57, and I can't get it open to save my life. Oh, come on. I have never seen anything that doesn't want to open as badly as this. There we go. Works better when you're doing it right. Okay. In case you don't own one of these, you should. It's a Shure SM57. You could probably drive nails with this thing and then it would still work. Pretty much every studio has several of them. If you're miking a guitar amp and that round thing is the speaker, point it right at the voice coil from 1/2 inch to 1 inch away, and it's automatically going to sound pretty good. And then stick a compressor on it and give it a little bit of compression, like a 3-to-1 ratio, where it just kicks in a little bit, depending on the part. You may want something where it's like super compressed, but most of the time you just want to catch the peaks, right? So you got it dead center, and then take like a condenser mic. This is a dynamic. Take a condenser mic, which will sound a little fuller, a little more robust, probably won't be able to handle the intense levels that this baby can handle, and put that like 2, 3, 4 feet away from the amp, and aim it at the amp so that you get, because sound is made by sound waves moving air. So if you're right up against the grill cloth, which you should, in my opinion, be with a 57, but you may want to see what the amp sounds like in the room. So take a 414 or an 87, or frankly, you know what? I use this mic, an Audio-Technica 2020 for TAXITV. That mic would sound fine as a distant mic for a guitar amp. It would absolutely sound fine. And it's a cheap mic. It's like $100 or something, really cheap. Everybody's got their favorites, you know. Everybody's got an opinion. This is just what I do. And it worked. Nobody ever, well, there's one guy from the band, Aldo Nova. He did not like the guitar sound I was getting on him. But that's a whole other story. All right, next question. From my own list. How to avoid popping P's when recording vocals. Yeah. I've got a whole series that I did, or a whole video that I did about this. But, you know, people put the microphone right there, popping P's. But if you put the microphone there, you're still close to the face. And when the singer sings, as long as they're not looking up at the mic, which they shouldn't, to set up a second mic that the singer thinks they're singing into and have your real mic be 3 inches away and angled down. This way, when they hit a plosive, a popping P, the air is moving out there as opposed to popping the P and kicking the diaphragm all over the place with your P popping stuff. Best polar pattern for a room mic? Oh, man. Alan, I wish I could give you a definitive answer. It really depends on the room and what it is that you're using the room mic for. French horn would be very different than a room mic on a drum kit or on a rock band. So it's so contextually dependent. But a good question, but there is no one-size-fits-all answer. How do you make publishers reach out to you time and time again? By getting your shiz straight. I'm not going to read the email that I've read on TAXITV before, but it's from a library owner saying, hey, thank you for sending me all that great stuff. The music was impeccable in so many words. I reached out to 17 of your members, and so many of them got the dopiest little things wrong, like didn't fill out the paperwork correctly, forgot to mention that they had a co-writer, or they didn't have work for hires on something, or I asked for it in this format and they sent it in another format. I asked them for mix minus vocal and they sent one that just didn't have verse vocals, but it had chorus vocals. I didn't ask for that. All those little things. If you want to be the person that they come back to time and time again, get that stuff right, because you just made his or her life easier, and that's what they want. In a fast-moving industry where it's a pretty demanding work environment, they don't have time to hold your hand, but my music is great. They love me. They won't love you for very long if you don't get those simple businessy things right. How to approach an industry pro at Taxi's convention? This one is so easy, and yet people will walk up. I'm looking for a CD. I don't have one. They'll walk up and go, hey, saw you on that panel. Check out my music. I do rock. I do pop. I do country. I do orchestral. And hold out a CD and just like right in the face of the person. No, don't do that. You wait until they go up to the bar, and then you walk up to the bar. Now you're like elbow to elbow with them, and you tell the bartender, yeah, I need a Heineken. Oh, hey, you were just on that panel there. It was a great panel. Thank you so much for coming to the Road Rally and helping to educate all of us. Do you mind if I ask you a question? How did you get your start as a music supervisor? Like, where did you grow up, and how old were you when you thought about, oh, gee, I want to be a music supervisor? Everybody loves to talk about him or herself. Just ask me. So they will start talking about their story, and they become very comfortable with you because you're genuinely interested in what their story is. And when they're done, they're going to say, how about you? And this is not a time where you say, oh, I'm super talented. Everybody back in Peoria loves my music. I was the standout kid in my, senior year marching band, Peoria High School, blah, 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 blah. None of that stuff matters. If you've had any placements, you simply say organic acoustic rock is my specialty, but I do other genres as well. I've already had 19 placements on this show and that show. They don't need the particulars. You don't have to say episode 3, scene 1 at a minute and 12 seconds. None of that matters. All they need is the big picture. I've had stuff on this show. That gives you instant credibility. If somebody else liked you enough that they wanted to use you, this person should at least pay attention to you. So that's the approach. Tell me how you got started. Everybody loves that. It works. How to avoid headphone leakage when recording vocals. I don't think I have the right props sitting around here for that. Okay. As we all know, there's a pair of headphones. That is where the sound comes out, right? Rudimentary headphone 101 stuff. Take neoprene, that dense neoprene like you would get if you order something online. Like I just got a couple of lavalier microphones, and it had this really dense 1/4 inch thick neoprene. I would cut that neoprene out and shove it in there. Don't glue it in there, but just shove it in there. So now you're recording the vocal and you've got one ear off. Well, under normal circumstances, that sound is leaking around the back of your head, and you've got a microphone right there. It's only a foot away from that sound leaking into there. But if you put a piece of neoprene, like wetsuit neoprene or that more dense neoprene in there, it will go a very long way to solving that problem. Keith is in the house. KBL baby, how are you, man? Okay, so that's all those questions. We can go a few minutes over. Oh, I want to tell you. So, I have some very good friends that own a company called Flare Audio. I featured their earphones, I don't know, like 9 months ago or something in one of our newsletters. These people understand sound and how the human ear works with sound better than anybody I've ever met on the planet Earth. They are so into it and build great products. They've got a new product coming out that I am not allowed to talk about, but they sent me a sample of it, should be here soon. And I believe they are going to come to the Road Rally, Flare, F-L-A-R-E. And they've got a new thing where you put this passive device in your ear, and you could take $5, as they said, $5 Chinese headphones, put them on, and they will sound like $1,000 headphones. Take $1,000 headphones, put the device in your ears, again, passive. Put your headphones on over it and go, holy crap. I believe them when they tell me that. A very close friend of mine was the head of audio quality at Capitol Records and then Warner Brothers Pictures for years. He was my assistant engineer like 45, 50 years ago back in the studio. So I know where his level of expertise is. And he turned me on to these people, and they are just crazy in love with making stuff sound amazing for very little money. So they are trying really hard to come to the Road Rally, and they're coming from the UK. And if they do come, I'm going to give them a classroom so that they can turn you guys onto it. I will also ask them to bring, like 5 or 10 of these things that I could give away as prizes from the stage at the Road Rally. So there you go. How often do we send out discount codes? Generally once a month. And I'm going to tell you right now that today is Monday. Wednesday is the first day of the September discount code. So if you're on our email list and heard about this, you'll be getting the discount thing. So there you go. Keith, when's the Michael Laskow autobiography coming out? I will volunteer guitar for the companion soundtrack. You've done enough, my friend. Keith is the creator of... I needed music for the first Road Rally sequel during the COVID lockdown, and I called him up and I said, I want something that sounds like ZZ Top meets early Joe Walsh. Like an hour later, he sends me this, and I'm like, I love it. And he goes, it's just a demo. I said, no, it isn't. It's a finished master. He goes, no, don't do that to me. I said, Keith, it is literally exactly what I want. Here's the longer version. It is so perfect for a show opening or closing for TAXITV. I ended up using it that year for all the sequels, and then without even bothering to ask Keith, I've used it for everything else, including when I walk on stage at the Road Rally. Anyway, I love that piece of music. It's just absolutely perfect for the application. But, here's a great example. What if Keith was the best guy in the world for creating really melancholy acoustic guitar songs about being sad because of a breakup? Could I use that to open a show? It's 4 o'clock on a Monday. We're all depressed. Somebody died during the last show. Let's celebrate their departure. No, you got to have something with energy. We're getting excited. Here comes the show, right? Okay, any other questions? I could wrap it up now. We're only 6 minutes over. The staff is like, shut it down, Laskow, shut it down. Joe Top, there you go. I love early Joe Walsh. I love ZZ Top. I thought the two things were like in the same ballpark and they would sound really cool together. So yeah, Road Rally. Don't miss the Road Rally. November 7th through the 10th in Los Angeles. Liz, can you put that link up one more time with the... you could put up the Road Rally page, but also the link that takes them to the newsletter. Is there anything you shouldn't bring to the Road Rally? I could name off a bunch of inappropriate stuff. There was the girl who walked around spitting into a cup all weekend. Don't bring her cup. She would literally lean up against the wall in the ballroom going, she was the original Haktua girl, honestly. She would sit there and just go and spit into a cup. I don't know. People, they freak me out. Zen Chief Engineer, eyed their parking at the hotel if you're not staying there. I don't really know what that means. What do people wear at the Road Rally? This would be dressed up. T-shirts, hoodies, flannel shirts, sweaters, jeans, just regular stuff. People do not come dressed. You'll be hard pressed to find anybody wearing like leather pants and wearing what do they call that thing? Goes in your crotch with metal studs. Not a sex thing. It's like a rock star thing. Anyway, you don't see a cod piece. You don't see a lot of people dressed like that. It's just regular people and the friendliest people you'll ever meet. There is no sense of like, ew, dude, you call that music? None of that. A cod piece. See, Liz, I got that one right away. Leather chaps, assless. Thank you, Tim. I'll keep a lookout for that. Do we need to register our non-taxi member rally? Yes. Go to your member page and then click on the rally thing, and it'll allow you to add a guest. Denim and leather. There you go. Super Blonde, you asked an EQ question that I didn't get to before. Let me see if I can find it quickly, or you can retype it. Yeah, I'm not finding it. Assless chaps might not get you a deal, but you'll make friends. I'm not so sure about that. A Leatherface spiked mask. So yeah, I wear one of those on stage the entire weekend. Come on, Super Blonde, spit out that EQ question. I need to answer an EQ question before I go. Mad Max attire. Yeah, you won't see any of that at the road rally. I'm telling you, anybody who comes to the road rally for the first time goes, I can't believe I've never done this before. What does EQ stand for, Ken Crombie? It stands for equalization. Basically, a fancy way to say tone control. Somebody said to me very early in my career, don't be intimidated by the 10,000 knobs and buttons and switches on this recording console. Just think of each one as a stereo, and you can pan it left, you can pan it right, you can pan it up the middle. You can add EQ, which is basically bass, treble, and mid-range. So just like you would dial in the tone on your stereo till it sounds pleasing for that piece of music, that's what you do. EQ is like, does it sound a little bass light? Let me add a little bottom end. Does it sound too honky in the middle? Let me set it to 700 hertz and roll it off 4 dB. Now some of the honk goes away. At least once. Oh man, they need the first year just to get the lay of the land, don't they, Keith? Question, easy one. What EQ band and cue to cut for de-essing a male baritone narration voice on a podcast or a live stream? There are a lot of variables that go into that, but you know what? The sibilance is almost always going to take place between like 8K, maybe 7,700, but call it 8K up to 10 or 12K. I'm not personally a fan of de-essers. I used to, back in the day, when I was doing this for a living, I would solve the problem at the source. I would take the 414 that I was using and go, not going to use that. Very bright on the top end, going to cause sibilance. I would use something like a Neumann 47, which was not my favorite microphone, but it had a little darker top end on it. So if I needed to get rid of sibilance, but wanted to get the mid-range kind of boost that Neumanns do have, I would use that. Martin Gravel, the road rally, rather addictive. You bet. I would think that now with all the super sophisticated plugins out there, just look at the sibilant stuff with any sort of graphing EQ, and it's going to tell you right where the sibilance is. Doesn't matter, because just hearing that the person is a baritone male voice doesn't really tell me enough, but just use anything that shows you where that is and roll that off. That's how I would solve it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Next week, I'm drawing a blank on the product, but a lady named Robina, who is going to be a Road Rally sponsor, and I'm totally blanking on the name of a product that she and her husband developed, which is organizing and tagging. And so she's going to be the guest on next week's show. You're welcome, everybody. Thank you. Were there hardware de-essers? Yes, there was an Orban de-esser with the blue front panel. I personally thought that while it may cure sibilance, it also made your vocal sound like crap. Not a fan. All right, you guys, take care. See you next week for another super duper exciting episode of Taxi TV Live. Bye-bye.